There's only 3 real buckets that causes students to fail math. And in this video, I want to break down the exact strategy that I use to analyze my students' papers whenever they complete their school exams. They send me the papers so that you yourself can figure out exactly what is your gap or your child's gap and actually improve in math before the next exam. Right? And one of these 3 buckets, actually the last bucket, is probably the most urgent one that you need to go and fix. Let's start off with the first one. Okay, so for the first bucket, the gap is usually a lack of understanding in the fundamental concepts, and I'm going to teach you how to spot it. So when I say lack of understanding in the fundamental concepts, is really, some common symptoms are your child does not even understand what formulas are inside the chapter, right? Or even the correct formulas, right? Because for example, in let's say coordinate geometry in Sec 3 E-Math, there are many different formulas, right? And a lot of students who are very weak in the fundamental concepts tend to mistake the formula for gradient for the length of line segment, right? Even though they look completely different, but some students are just completely clueless, right? And I've seen a lot of students like this myself firsthand, be it my students at my center or just students outside in general, right? And that's a very clear sign that you are completely lost in the chapter and you have a big gap in your fundamental concept. Okay, so this is how to spot it, right? What you need to do is to really sit down with your textbook and redo the entire chapter again. Right? There is no other way to rebuild your fundamental concept. There's no magic pill. You just need to have the patience to sit down with your textbook or get someone who knows the chapter in and out, just like our teachers at A1 Math Academy, to go through the entire topic with you again. Right? Because when you have someone who knows how to navigate the chapter, what are the important things to highlight and to actually zoom in on, right? It makes your learning a lot quicker and a lot easier. The second type of mistake that causes students to fail, which is not a lack of fundamental concept understanding, is actually a lack of application. Now, a lot of students think that they know the concept just because they read the textbook and then they understand the formulas and they roughly know what the concepts are, right? But when it comes to actually applying them, they get lost because they don't know which tool to use to actually tackle the question. So a very good way to actually analyze your paper would be to see the questions that you have done in your exam papers, right? Is the formulas that you are using even correct in the first place, right? Is it even suitable, or are you even using the correct formulas in the correct question? Because a question can be testing you on, let's say, simple interest, but then let's say you go and use compound interest to go and tackle the question. Even though, yes, you understand the concept of compound interest, you understand the concept of simple interest, but you don't know which tool to use to actually apply, right? And how do we actually improve in this aspect of application when you know the concepts roughly, but you use the wrong tools? To be very honest, the key here is just repetition. Now, at my math tuition center, I collated a list of many questions because repetition is king. When my students do enough questions that are all roughly the same, they start to realize the pattern behind, if let's say this concept is being tested, roughly how will the question be structured, right? When you have this enough repetition of doing so, you realize that when you actually encounter a similar type of question that's phrased similarly in the exam, you automatically know that, okay, this is not simple interest, it's compound interest, because I've done this like 10,000 times in my normal practice, right? There's no shortcut to this. It's all repetition, and that's what we aim to do with our worksheets at the center. Now, the last thing, which is the most deadly one causing people to fail, it's not because you lack understanding or you just lack application, right? In fact, students who have these two often fall in the last category, and that is careless mistakes. So I have students who are extremely bright. They know the concept, they learn the concept very fast. They can apply it very fast. But when it comes to exam, they still fail. And why? Because they make careless mistakes in part A, which causes them to ECF, in B, C, D, and in the end, the entire question they fail, even though they know the concept. And how do we as teachers at A1 Math Academy support students like this who have careless mistake issues? We simply just point it out to them in the practice that they do in class. That is why every single time in class, I always walk around. I'm never sitting down. I'm never stationary in class. I make it a point to constantly walk around in class to observe my students as they're doing work and point out quickly on their work, hey, you made this careless mistake, go and fix it now before you proceed, right? And the more times I point it out to my students, the more aware they are of their careless mistake tendencies, and naturally, over time, they tend to make lesser careless mistakes because they are more aware. These 3 things are holding you back. Analyze your paper using this. And if you want my help or my teacher's help at A1 Math Academy to help you get that A, just WhatsApp the number on the screen over here, and I'll just share with you a little bit more about how we conduct our classes at the center. And let's hopefully get you that A by the end of this year. Thanks for watching.